Hello and welcome to another episode of the Reverse Mentor Lab,
where we engage with thinkers from around the world to explore how leaders of today can learn from leaders of tomorrow.
You're back with your hosts. I'm Joshua.
And I'm Jens.
Today's guest is Joe Neft. He's part of the team at Too Good To Go and is passionate about sustainability. In the conversation today, we'll explore various topics around the sustainability ecosystem and center in and zoom into those most important points around food waste. Enjoy the conversation.
Hey Joe, welcome to the show and thanks so much for your time. It's great to have you with us.
Yeah, hi Jens, hi Joshua. Thanks for having me. Super excited to be part of the podcast.
Hello, it's great having another German living in Denmark on the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Hi from Copenhagen, where you guys actually sitting right now. We're super international, right?
Yeah, I'm sitting in Germany. Boring.
Yeah, we've got three different countries inside of this virtual world now. So we've got South Africa, Denmark, and Germany, which is quite cool and also quite exciting that the three of us have never met in person. And you'll also notice if you're watching the video of this that we've got some different backgrounds. And we joked before we started recording that Jens is definitely the experienced thinker inside of the room today because he's got a super cool purple hazy background and lots of books, which is also how he, I guess, has gathered some of his knowledge over the years.
Yeah, it's just to pretend to seem smart. These are all adventure books. It's not really deep business knowledge.
Yeah, well, it's a sort of a great segue there, Jens, in terms of adventure books and stories and things like that. So, Joe, maybe to kick off the conversation, tell us a bit about your story and what makes Joe Joe.
Yeah, perfect. Exactly. To give a quick kind of intro for the people also like listening in. So, I'm Joe, and currently part of a food waste company that you might have heard of called Too Good To Go, where we're on a mission to fight food waste, or basically eliminate food waste in the world. That's where we want to go. But before going more into that, maybe a quick background, because as you already mentioned, I'm based in Copenhagen, but I'm originally German. And a quick intro how everything came about or how I landed where I am today is basically that I came from a very typical business traditional background of and had this idea of later I'm gonna do a career and earn a lot of money, and that kind of was the goal first. And then along with the years it kind of shifted the focus, and I became more there's so many challenges still in this world that we need to kind of figure out, and it's more about what does the future look like and how can we actually live in 20, 50, 100 years, and it's still livable for the rest of the planet. And that really shifted my focus of it's not so much about earning a lot of money, but actually being happy and having a good life, and how can I accomplish that, and then shifted my focus towards more innovation and entrepreneurship, and really looking into what are sustainable ways of finding solutions for the planet today. And that's how I ended up at Too Good To Go, which is in my opinion one of the coolest business models or examples of such solutions that could help work towards that future. Yeah, so that's me in a nutshell real quick.
Before we dive into Too Good To Go, sustainability, and a lot of other interesting topics, tell us a little bit about how do you see yourself? So the Reverse Mentor Lab is all about engaging young leaders and future leaders and with experienced thinkers, like we call them. So how do you see yourself as a future leader?
I think what's really interesting, and what also this is the platform that shows it's really cool about it. You can connect today virtually with basically anyone around the world, and you can connect with the older generation, let's say, and the younger generation. There's not this much kind of distance anymore on a technological level, but we still, it seems from a kind of society perspective, we haven't really started the conversation yet. So it's still very like silo working, or like still very much like we have the seniority and the young people not communicating, or we have like a lot of startups that are super young that don't have enough older people. So there's like, you need both. And like we see for the challenges that we are facing, that we need to have those conversations and we need to work collaboratively together. And my role in this is just to like start engaging like with people like you and using these platforms to speak out about my story, my topic, and how and with whom I want to engage with, or what can I bring to the table, and really just ask questions and start talking with each other. That's really it. Just talking, having a conversation.
Yeah, Joe, and I sort of just love the way that you framed that, and it reminds me of the word that you mentioned around solutions. And I think that, sitting inside of this space and we're navigating the information age, what are the solutions that we need to better or future fit us to deal with those challenges that we'll have inside of the space going forward? And that sort of is a great segue again, just around sustainability and some of the passions that you have, both on an individual and now obviously in your professional career as well. So the theme for today and what we've sort of outlined to chat about is around empowering everyone to fight food waste. But I'm going to sort of start very high level inside of that. And I'm going to ask a question, and you've sort of already alluded to it, but maybe tell us a bit more about what got you interested in sustainability more broadly.
So I think one issue, and it's still like an issue for me at certain times as well, is like, how do we define sustainability and like, what does it mean? Because it is often used to kind of like how, like just talking about ecological ways of like, how can we save nature? But like sustainability, how I really see is this like combination of keeping nature in mind, but also society, but also making a business case. Like if we just talk about solution side, that you can sustain yourself also from an economic level. So while you try to maybe change the system, you still have to find ways to work within that system to then break it or change it. So for me, sustainability is really like, it's a huge challenge of like, how do we find a solution that's good for the planet, that's good for the people, and that works in the current system that we've built, what challenges the like structures that we have. And yeah, like these 3 points really like bring it to me together. And for me, I'm still on the journey of figuring out, and then like landing it to go was just, for me, this was one of the solutions where I was really passionate about and was really excited about the business model that they presented and the way they approach the topic of food waste. And why food waste is really important, or why I found it's really interesting, is because food is one of the basic like needs that we have, and it's one of the biggest like problems that we have, and it's one of the number one, or it's considered as the number one action to combat climate change right now. Like fighting food waste that's one of the like biggest impacts you can have on climate change. So yeah, that's really what got me like hooked in it, and that's why I'm like passionate about that.
If we dive deeper into the topic of food waste, just to get a little bit under the hood, is how do you define food waste? What is the change? So for those who are listening to this podcast or watching it, can you give them a little bit more depth around that?
Yeah, of course. So like maybe like as a number to start with, like 1/3 of food currently in the world gets wasted, and that means like it's along like the whole supply chain. So it's not only about the food that's wasted at the end consumer, but it's also from like, let's say a banana, for example, right? Like it's grown, let's say in South America, and then it's picked there, and then it needs to go onto a ship, and then it's shipped somewhere, and then along that way also you produce food waste, like stuff, like it from like touching something, or like it just hasn't, like it was too ripe already when it arrived. And the whole idea is also like when we, for example, have a banana, I'm just taking this example now. if you have a banana at home and it's a bit moldy, and you're like, it's just one banana. How big of a deal could it be when I throw it away? But if you really get aware of the whole supply chain that's behind it, like how much like energy and logistics has went into this banana now ended up on your plate, throwing it away actually creates a huge impact on this. And it's like an easy fix to save. So that's a bit kind of the background, and it really, because it is such a big like part of how we could combat climate change, and it's something that's really feasible for people also to understand, and we all kind of connected with it. I think it's a really good start to talk about climate change and also have everyone having an impact on it. It's give a bit
because it's so simple. I mean, it's literally, hey, there's not everyone is into the whole production chain, but everyone understands, hey, there's a banana and it's not growing on the tree like in front of my house if we live, let's say, in Denmark. So everyone gets that. And I think that's also the beauty of the simplicity of getting people to understand that everyone can make a difference in just doing simple things.
Right. And I also want to say, though, because like often it's pushed on the consumer in the end, and I don't want to like do that necessarily. And it's also something which I think it's like it has to be tackled from all kind of areas if you want to create the change. So one part is the consumer, obviously, but we're also talking about businesses here. We're talking about education, schools. We're talking about public affairs on a governmental level. So it's really about like if you want to tackle a topic that's complex, you have to address it in a complex way, let's say. Like they're not like you want to keep it simple, but then again, if it's a complex issue, you can't just make it simple and say, okay, we're just going to put it on the consumer and that's going to fix it. You have to look at it in a complex way as well. And that's the nice part. I feel like I'm promoting to go a lot now, but that's also why like that's a nice part of Too Good To Go, that we're not just offering a platform for consumers to save food, but we're actually going into these different areas. We're talking with governments, we're working with schools together, we create educational material on that. We work with business together to help them save food. So it's really like a holistic approach to the problem.
Yeah, Joe, I really love what you said there around using complexity to address complex problems. And I think if you think about it, one of the biggest things when I think about food waste is my mind goes back to when I was a lot younger and sitting inside of a classroom. And inside of this classroom, we were in a geography class, and there was a picture of a ditch somewhere in Africa with a large amount of food waste. And using the banana example, bananas just sitting inside of that. And people will look at that and they'll see a simple photo and they'll say, geez, this farm has wasted the amount of food that they could have potentially put inside of a ship or made money off. But the complexity of the supply chain of the entire ecosystem is far more complicated than just that one photograph. And I think that's something that you've already alluded to around how we need to potentially shift our thinking, but also make people more aware of the complexity of the entire food ecosystem. Because like you said, it's not just throwing away a moldy banana that's been sitting in your fridge for 3 weeks. There's actually a real impact inside of that from a consumer standpoint, but also just thinking around broader supply chains and what that means from the way that we consume things. So maybe to ask you a question is, how do we go about, changing the way people think about food waste, changing the way people think about food security? Where do you think we should start?
Yeah, so it is really tricky. So to have a complex topic, addressing all these points, like looking at it at all the complexity, and then breaking that one down though again into like simple steps. So, and it's really then like finding solutions, all like let's stick a bit with the kind of categories of like end consumer, businesses, the schools and governments, and then finding simple solutions there that can make a change. So for example, one thing is that we have a lot of confusing labels, for example, on our products, like a best before or used by, or so it's the different labelings that we have. And one kind of approach that was pushed for governments, or that we work with Too Good To Go and governments together, is that we made it possible that on labels that said best before, we added another label, which was basically the look, smell, taste label. And it basically means that if you have a best before label, let's say best before end of July, it doesn't mean that after that your product is bad, but it just means that if, like, they have to put a label on it from a regulation standpoint. But then with the new labeling that we kind of push now, it means that once it's like after the best before date, you can open it. If it looks good, then the next point is to smell. If it smells good, then you taste it a little bit. And if it tastes good, then it's still good to eat it. Like we as like humans, we do have a system for that to also notice if food is good or bad. And this is something that we've tested, and like it's actually been like 99% of people of the survey that we did like realized that label and understood like how to use it. And it's like, so that's just one simple, let's say, solution on the like government side that you can do. And then on the education side, it's really about like, it's great to hear that you, for example, in school had these talks in geography. I actually didn't. Like for me, like then we learned about like where does what country lie and what is the capital of that. Like that was a bit geography that we had. Like there was no explanation about like how do food chains work, or like what's the problem with it, and really educating the new generation on this. That's like a step that you can do on that side, like creating engaging material, and then really breaking it down to understand also what, like making relatable comparisons. So what we do, for example, that we look into CO2 equivalents at Too Good To Go. So if you save one bag of Too Good To Go, that points to like 2.5 kilogram of CO2 equivalent saved. And that equivalent means that you can like then compare this to, oh, how many flights are this? Or how many hours of flight did I save now? And then it becomes really graspable for people as well. So if you save 5 bags of Too Good To Go, for example, then that equivalents to 145 hours and actually days of LED light like glowing. So it's like, wow, like I have a real impact, like making people aware of like what the impact is that they have also with this. It's like a lot of like really looking at all different areas, but then in those areas breaking it down to simple solutions, just doing it one step at a time, like not trying to like fix it all, but like as long as you work holistically on it, that's the whole kind of like way to go. And then it all takes time. That's one step at a time.
Yeah, it's great. I love this simple solution. I'm a big fan of that. And just touching the look, smell, taste process. It's just like growing up in Germany. It's like we got kind of educated that the best before date is the date where you should, after that date, you should not do anything with it anymore. And that at least if we take our household here, so my wife is always saying, no, we can't eat that anymore. That it was best before yesterday. We can't eat it today. It's like, hey, you haven't even opened it yet, so we don't know if it's good or bad. But it's just, if you have that in your mind as a mindset, you will throw things away. So if you just change that mindset and get educated around that, hey, open it and have a look. And if then my wife is doing it with our daughter will learn that in the age of 4, and she will grow into that naturally to say, hey, it says best before, but let's have a look at it. So I think it's really building it into the society, which you also mentioned, in a super simple way, and this literally just being open and exploring it. Love that.
Yeah, education, I think, is the key point on that. Like it takes that takes like longer time, but that's the most effective, like educating and just making aware. And a lot of products who never actually go bad, but like because of regulation, they have to put a label on it. So if you just know more about like food itself and how it's been like produced or grown, even like just get a basic understanding of it, then, and not just like be like, yeah, tomatoes I can buy in the supermarket, but no idea how does a tomato grow? And all of this like very simplistic, like basic stuff. I think that already makes such a difference and like give appreciation for the products themselves. Yeah, sure.
Joe, I just want to double click quickly on the LED light example that you did, and charging an LED light for 145 days, or I can't remember the specific of it. But how do we use technology to help educate, but also to make people aware of the more holistic story that by changing their behavior they can influence?
I mean, so like tech already, there are so many solutions that I'm like, most of them I'm probably not even aware of that work towards this. So like Too Good To Go is just like one like small part of that solution in that sense. But then there, like especially when it comes to like food businesses, for example, and you look into like the bakery or the cafe around the corner, it's like tech solutions. There are enough tech solutions on like how can you order better, or how can you make sure that your stock is that you don't order too much or too less, or if they have like smart systems that like indicate if your product is soon to perish, and then you should maybe use that before the other ones that you have. So like tech wise, I don't think there's a problem. Like I think solutions are there. The problem is more like if you take the bakery at the corner and you look at the people that work there, it's the kind of them using these tech solutions, or them being connected, or like just letting them know that they exist and how to use them. That's, I think it's a huge challenge, because for them, the daily work is like selling bread, or like, I wake up and I make my bread and then I sell it. And they don't like really like showing them that there are solutions out there that they can use that help them as well, because they also want to save food, but they don't have the time or energy to like go and look for them. Like they're just in a different mindset there as well. And so really like switching that is that's a big challenge, making them tech savvy enough to work with it.
Yeah, and I think that's as well, like you mentioned, the translation of it. How do you make it relatable to someone understanding it? And that can be, hey, that's the LED bulb. And that maybe for the bakery or for a smaller business, what is the benefit of them doing it? If you then translate it and they see their own personal or business benefit in doing it, then it's just getting natural. And I think that's going back to the society level. That's where we need to get to when it comes to education. So how do we get it on a level that everyone sees the benefits for themselves? And then if you see the benefit for yourself, then you most naturally will do it. And then you as well, because everyone gets it, at least I guess that it is good for society, it's good for the planet, all of that things. If you then make it attached to that person, hey, it's good for you, it's good for your wallet, it's good whatever it is, then people will start doing it more regular and promote it, I guess.
And then, like, in there again, there's needed to have different approaches. So there's like business like us that will go and kind of challenge bakeries, or I'm just taking again bakery example. Go like nothing against bakeries; they're great, by the way. But
especially in Denmark,
like, amazing, yeah. And then like our job is to like go and educate there, but then also here again for some governments making sure that you're actually not allowed to throw away food anymore, like it is in France, for example. Like supermarkets, they like legally are not allowed anymore now to throw away food, so they have to actually actively look now for solutions. So it's like from different angles, just pushing that agenda basically, and yeah, again, like holistically, and then from each side, and we kind of like pushing a little bit here and there, and then it will like that will bring the change in mindset. At least I'm hoping that.
I love that, Joe. So if we take that a bit deeper and we go down another level and we say, what can younger thinkers or younger generations maybe teach existing models and existing systems about this way of thinking? So how, as a young thinker, I know you're passionate about sustainability, and in the conversation so far, we've really spoken about the how and what some of the Too Good To Go are doing inside of that space. But how can we shift this generationally? How can we teach experienced thinkers, as we like to call them in these settings, this way of thinking that everything is way more connected and there's a lot of interdependencies of things?
I think one way is like giving visibility and also defining a space that's really trusted. Because I think the great part is that you can, like, if you are already interested in a topic, or if you already have a certain type of knowledge, you can like find these information easily because they are available. But like, how do you bring them to like people who might not be aware of it, and how do you make it like a trusted like source, and how do you make sure this is something that reaches the right people? And I think for that, I don't like know yet how to do this, but it's really about like people like you also offering a platform for like young speakers to like share their stories, and like just having the conversation and talking about this, and really making sure that the quality level is there as well. And then building, I'm not sure where this like will go eventually, but like finding a space where this can be accessible also for others. Yeah, it's really about visibility in the end. And then how do you reach as many people as possible, and making sure that the quality is high? Because like with our with our fast changing world, also you don't really want to like say something wrong or get like backlash on these topics, like especially when you want to push an agenda or like you want to push into a new direction. You really want to make sure that everything kind of like that you do is like good, and then you be transparent, even if you're not 100% sustainable. You're like, okay, we're not sustainable and we're not claiming this, but we're like aiming to go this way, and like we're just trying to figure out how to do this as well. So yeah, it's a tough cookie to crack.
I so agree on that point. It's like being transparent and let people be part of your journey, which just then relates them to what you're doing. And if you're transparent and saying, hey, we're on a journey, we're not there yet, but we need your help, we need your support, please reach out to us or whatever, contribute to it, then people will see it as well from a different perspective and understand that, hey, it's not that easy as a business or as a person, depending on what you're doing.
And it's also about, I don't want to blame anyone either. So it's like this whole, how do you educate people without like kind of blaming them that what they're doing right now, or that they're not like sustainable enough, or in some sort of way, or you still fly and that's not cool. Like you say you like, so it's really about in the first phase, just gathering knowledge and giving people enough tools and material so they can build their own kind of idea and understanding of the topic, and also simple ways of how they can already like make a change if they kind of want to, like, and not blaming them that they're not doing it right or this is wrong, and just really just trying to get them excited about the journey as well, and that they can be part of it. And that's the first step.
So I love the word that you just used there, Joe, excited. So I think sometimes when you think about food waste and we think about it, sustainability problems, is that immediately we go into sort of like dull, dark, like, very pessimistic about the future. And sure, we do have to be realistic about it, but we can also get excited about it. We can get excited about different ways of doing things, different ways of thinking, different business models, opportunities, people that can actually make this thing happen. So I know that you are personally excited about it. How do you think we inspire other people to get excited about the opportunities that this space has?
Yeah, it's like, I think it's again kind of the mindset shift and like how we use, especially like media to portray situations. Like obviously we have to talk about the problems or issues that we're facing, but we're often not talking enough about the solutions that we already have that are not perfect maybe yet, but to give them space and like invest in them and be like, we believe that this can go the right direction, and then you probably have to tweak things along the way. Obviously, that's always happening, but not kind of, oftentimes it happens that you have a solution and then like, we have this new invention that's super good to like for sustainability. And then often people try to find like what's not working with it to just kind of disregard and be like, no, we can continue as it is now because this is also not perfect. And because of that, we don't change anything at all. And that's really, again, changing here kind of the story behind it of how like it's not, we will never have a perfect solution, but like we need to start working into new directions or try out new things and that sound good. And then if we find something that's not working, and just like acknowledging, being transparent about it, and then working on that as well. But like there are so many solutions really, so it's not about that we wouldn't be able to work on, and we just really need to shift investments there as well. Like totally off topic now, but a friend of mine, she like, I'm a big believer, or like I think seaweed is super interesting, for example, on that note as well, what you can do. And a friend of mine, she actually worked on a seaweed farm on the Faroe Islands for a couple of weeks. And it's like one of the like first big ones in the world that like use it to, they specifically use it now to produce feed for animals. But there are so many other like benefits that seaweed has proven to have. But the problem is really like the investment in it, scalability. Like they often use kind of machines that are used or that are taken from other industries, and they just use them because it doesn't exist yet in that world, and they're still trying to figure out, okay, how can we do this? How can we work on that? They use like old ships that they use for fishing. Now they use it for seaweed farming. And it's like, this is like super exciting though. It's not about like they're really innovative in that way in using things that don't exist yet and make it work for them. But like if there's more investment, if there's more visibility, if we don't see this as a, okay, let's find what's the problem with it, but more like, oh, this is an interesting solution. And we've seen on studies that there are potential ways how this could help. Let's explore this more. Let's invest in this. And that all takes a bit of time until it takes on. But I mean, that's why, like, I guess young thinkers are here as well, because we like see this maybe a bit more quicker, or we are more aware of it. And then we just raise this and we need to push this. And then working with, in like the older I'm just calling it older generation. I don't like that word, but just to differentiate here, the people who are in this role who can influence, then that these solutions get more visibility as well. So it's like working together on that. Yeah. Drifting off here and there. What was the question again?
No, it's perfect. So we're changing gears towards the end of the podcast. So we're always asking our guests to put a challenge out into the world. So what is the challenge you would like to share and inspire other people with?
Since I'm like a food waste interested person, my challenge is obviously related on this, but I wanted to keep it really like simple, or something that and just bring a little bit of awareness of what you can do. And maybe you already know of these tricks, but one thing I love to do is that if I have a lot of like bread, like to make sure that it doesn't go like bad, you can just like easily cut it up and freeze it. And then whenever you need it, you just like toast it and it's as good as new. It's amazing. It's the best trick ever, I personally think. And it only adds benefits to everyone. And it's a very simple trick that everyone can do at home. So I challenge people out there to, like, if you have a lot of bread or too much, just use your freezer and you'll be good for months. Especially if you use Too Good To Go and you get a bakery bag. So that's the best thing. Get a Too Good To Go bag from a bakery and then freeze that bread, and you will be good for at least a month of food on the bread side, and it's all delicious.
That's great. And again, a simple one as well. Joe, how can people reach out to you? How can people find you?
Yeah, you can, I'm happy to connect, and especially, as I mentioned before, to just like keep up the conversation and talk about it. Like, I'm still here to learn as well. I'm not saying that I've understood the whole world of food waste, and there are probably a lot of solutions or problems that I'm not even aware of. So if anyone is listening in and wants to like keep on talking, they can reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's Johannes Neft, and you just like send me a quick message, and I'm happy to connect and chat further on this.
Great. We will put your link as well into the show notes so people can directly click through and get to you. Joe, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure having you on the podcast.
No, thank you guys for having me. It was super exciting to get this platform also and share a bit about the journey that I'm on. Super happy to be there.
Thanks,
cool.
Joe.
Thanks so much, Joe. We'll be in touch and keep inspiring people. And I love sort of how you brought us back to the simplicity at the end, because I think sometimes when you think about these massive problems of food waste and sustainability, we often overcomplicate how we should start. And you gave everyone listening a very simple way to start. And super stoked to see what you're doing at Too Good To Go, and look forward to tracking that journey with you.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thanks
for listening and joining us on the journey that is the Reverse Mental Lab. If anything fascinated you in the discussion that we had today, you're welcome to set up a 15-minute coffee chat with us. Our emails are in the show notes, and you can also connect with us on our website, thexyzplayground.com.